Hi everyone, this is Terry Arvizu Gonzalez from the Tag Collab. And around here we talk about identity, leadership, the messy, beautiful intersection of the in-between, of duality. We don't believe in binaries, we believe in both and. And today's conversation is about the art of duality, not just in culture, but in life. What does it mean to carry more than one identity at once, to feel 100% one thing and 100% another thing? For me, it shows up in being both Hispanic and American. For you to and I guess us Hispanics are American, but we have a tendency to say that we are a combination of both, right? For you, it may be balancing ambition and gratitude, maybe work and family, tradition and reinvention. But here's where science comes in. Psychologists call it integrative complexity, our brain's ability to hold multiple truths at once. Neuroscience shows that living the contradictions doesn't weaken us, it makes us more creative, adaptive, and resilient, even though, and I say weakness because we often don't feel seen, completely seen. Because this duality can feel so complex, right? You're neither here nor there, neither from here or nor from there. So whether you've lived between two language or industries or roles, this episode is for someone who's straddled two worlds. Duality can feel like a burden, but it's actually a superpower. So the art of both. I've always loved the art of both. Maybe it's why I studied journalism, to learn how to hold space for contradictions, to ask questions that didn't have simple answers. Or maybe it's because I am the embodiment of duality, 100% Hispanic and 100% American. And within that truth, I recognize something else. Sometimes those percentages vary. Some of my traits may lean more Anglo and others more Hispanic. It shifts depending on the day. It may shift within the room I'm in or the people that I'm around. My accent softens or it might sharpen. My humor tilts one way or the other way. My cultural references move like a dial. There doesn't make me less of either. It makes me fully both. On paper, that sounds impossible, but to me, it's reality. I wasn't born in Cuba, yet I'm called Hispanic. And to some born in their countries of origin, I'm too American. I live in the liminal space where I'm neither entirely from here or entirely from there. I know both sides intimately, and I've learned to choose what works for me and when it works for me. And it feels like a superpower, because here's what I know to be true. In my life, both sides are true, and that's a beautiful thing. Why my story is becoming more common. The duality that I describe, being 100% Hispanic and 100% American, used to feel maybe like a private tension. But the numbers show us that it's not just personal anymore to me. It's generational. Let me give you some statistics to put this in perspective. U.S. born majority. Today, 68% of Latinos in the U.S. are U.S. born. That means they're also educated in the United States. Among children, that figure jumps from 93 to 95%, meaning that Latino youth are growing up straddling the same dualities that I describe. Our languages in transition. While 70% of Latinos still speak Spanish at home, only 57 of US born Latinos do. And at the same time, more than a third of Latino youth are already speaking only English at home. That's how I grew up, even though my Spanish is perfect. And by the way, let me say with a caveat, it's because I worked in Spanish language television for so long, and I was able to perfect it. But when you're born and raised in this country, educated in this country, and the language at home is English, it's never going to be perfect. This is the generation we call that are called no sabo. It's a part of our reality. Try being educated in this country, and even whether they spoke Spanish at home or not, no, your Spanish is not going to be perfect, and you shouldn't feel ashamed of it, which is oftentimes something that does happen. I felt that when I have been in rooms with people who are maybe more Cuban than I am. At the same time, so this shows how bilingualism and biculturalism they're really not fixed. They evolve with each generation. Generational shifts show that by the third generation, just 34% of Latinos can hold a conversation in Spanish. I am a third generation, basically. That's not a loss of culture. That's important to recognize. It is not a loss of culture. It's the proof of the blending, the constant negotiation, the reality of living in two worlds at once. A growing force. Projections show that Hispanic population is rising from 63.8 million in 2020 to anywhere from 111 to 129 million by 2060. Those are going to be children born in this country, Hispanics born in this country, who will have to straddle the duality of both. That represents and will represent, if the projections do come to fruition, 27 to 31% of the entire U.S. population. What once may have felt like a niche identity is quickly becoming one of the central to the American experience, and it's that duality that is emerging. They aren't just numbers, they're evidence that millions of us are navigating the same in-between space, learning to hold two truths, which sounds counterintuitive, right? But to live in nuance and to see duality as a strength. The science of duality. Psychologists call this capacity integrative complexity, the ability to recognize multiple, even contradictory perspectives and integrate them into one coherent whole. Research shows that people high in integrative complexity are creative, better problem solvers, and more adaptive leaders. This isn't just academic jargon, it's a survival skill for people like us or like me, and it's actually a superpower. So you're welcome to the United States. Growing up Latina, Hispanic in America, you quickly learn that binary thinking doesn't fit your world. The world wants you to pick a side. Are you Hispanic or are you American? The Hispanics want to make you American. The Americans want to make you Hispanic. Are you ambitious or are you grateful? Are you a dreamer or are you practical? But neuroscience tells us that the brain actually can thrive on nuance. When you grapple with conflicting ideas, we activate what's called the anterior cingulate cortex, which plays a key role in cognitive flexibility and emotional regulation. Our identity is wired that way. Whereas for others, it may feel almost like a threat and they want to oversimplify it. For us, it's our reality. Holding two truths at once literally rewires the brain to be more resilient and open-minded. That's our superpower. So while the world pushes us to either or, our biology, you know what, is built for both, and it's making us incredibly resilient, open-minded, better problem solvers, and better leaders. The cost of choosing sides. For Latinos born in the US like me, this duality can feel especially fraught. We're sometimes told we're not Cuban enough, not Mexican enough, or too American. It is as if our identity was on perpetual trial by both sides. This is why I write, to understand that bridge generation with all its dimensionality. At a tech conference, I once heard a group describe 34 Latino countries. Now, I recognize Latino is not the same as Hispanic. In this case, there's 33 Latino countries, and they added one more, which was the Hispanic American as a collective nationality. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. We can argue that not all Hispanic Americans are the same, just like not all Hispanics are the same, but it created space for us perspective that's long been missing. And it's not been missing, it just hasn't been recognized maybe. A perspective deeply shaped by both the immigrant experience of our parents and the American society that in turn has shaped us too. It's almost felt like the acknowledgement of a new breed, of a new nationality that I could belong to, where I didn't have to be either or. Whether I guess I say breed or nationality, whatever you want to call it, but it just, and there may be a better word for it, but it is what it is. Recently, I was coaching a young woman and her mother. Her mother shared how her daughter, brilliant and full of promise, refused to speak English when she arrived in the U.S. many years ago from her country of origin. She excelled at school, so clearly she understood English, but when pressed, she confessed that she didn't want to speak English because she did not want to lose her connection to her family of origin. That resistance wasn't about language, it was about belonging. I thought of a coworker once also who said something I'll never forget. She said that sometimes those of us who are Cuban American are more Cuban than even our parents or those born on the island. And the reasoning made sense. She said, when you're born there, no one can question your identity. But when you're born here, the identity is always being questioned. And so you hold on to it with even more focus because it's also the connection to your family. From survival to superpower. What once felt like a burden, if it did, maybe not to all, I don't want to generalize, never being entirely from here or from there and trying to figure out what space you occupy, it really is, like I said, a superpower. As a journalist, my dual perspective gave me a bridge into communities others might never see. I could code switch, language, and cultural references seamlessly. I could ask questions others might have been afraid to ask because I understood whose questions mattered to both sides. I could represent at some points different perspectives in the same conversation in order to bridge and connect and help people who weren't that version Hispanic American or immigrant, maybe even sometimes the white and what was considered the brown, helping them come together to understand each other because I had been in both worlds and could understand both perspectives. And it was almost accepted, right? That I could speak on behalf of one or the other. This isn't just a cultural skill, it's a cognitive advantage. Bilingual and bicultural individuals have been shown in research to exhibit greater cognitive flexibility and even the delay of onset of dementia. In a business world increasingly driven by global connections, this isn't just valuable, it's essential. The courage to be both. Living as both isn't always comfortable. These are moments of alienation, sometimes a little bit of exhaustion, right? Because we also, I guess, maybe want to fit in somewhere, but it's not. We're a version of this duality. And longing to maybe just fit cleanly, like maybe sometimes it feels like other people do. But I'd rather navigate that discomfort than to shrink myself into a box someone else built for me. Because life is richer when you allow contradictory truths to coexist. You can be incredibly ambitious and deeply grateful at the same time. You can love the country that you live and fiercely honor the roots of your family. You can admire your upbringing and still question whether it serves you, all of it serves you today. You can be 100% Hispanic and 100% American, even if those percentages vary sometimes by dates and by situations. Reclaiming both, I believe that those of us who straddle cultures, language, and identities have a responsibility to tell our stories and our point of view, not just for ourselves, but because they challenge the binary thinking that limits everyone else. We're living proof that contradictory ideas can be both true at the same time, that belonging isn't purity, it's about connection. The identity is not a fixed box to check, an ever-evolving story we get to write. So next time someone tries to force you into a single box, remember this. I like to say that in a world where now we say, what are our pronouns or what do you identify? He, she, her, him, them, whatever. I identify as me with all my duality, my complexity, my dimension, and you know what? It's a beautiful thing. So thank you for holding space for me today. If this resonated, share it with someone who also lives in the in-between or someone who maybe never have thought about this in this way. Because the more we normalize this duality, the more we recognize that both and is not just a cultural story, it's a human one. The more we're going to build belonging, right? And inclusion for all of us. We all have a space here. This is the Tag Kalag. I'm Terry Arvisu. Here we reclaim identity, rewrite rules, and remind each other that science and lived experience agree. Holding to truth doesn't weaken us, it makes us stronger. Till next time.